In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, Christ is in our midst. I wanted to read to you today some of the quotes from this very fun book that I have. But one of the quotes is from the year 1825 from the Quarterly Review, and he talks about speed. It says, "What can be more absurd than the prospects held out of locomotives traveling twice as fast as stagecoaches?" In 1926, Lee DeForest, a scientist and inventor, wrote about television, saying, "While theoretically and technically television may be feasible, commercially and financially, I consider it all an impossibility, a development of which we need not waste time of dreaming." In 1901, William Baxter, Jr. of Popular Science wrote on transportation, "As a means of rapid transit, aerial navigation could not begin to compete with the railroad." In 1889, the Literary Digest wrote about automobiles, saying, "The ordinary horseless carriage is at present a luxury for the wealthy, and although its price will probably fall in the near future, it will never, of course, come into common use like the bicycle." You know, it's funny, but back then it was very much a perspective, and maybe even some of the perspectives we have today could be considered ridiculous 100 years from now or 50 years from now. But one of the things the reason I brought that up is because many times we have a hard time seeing change. We have a hard time understanding what change means to us. And listening to the gospel reading, we've all heard the gospel reading about the seed falling, and it falls here and it falls there, and by the end you're trying to figure out what kind of ground am I again? Am I the good ground? Am I the rocks? Do I have weeds? What am I? And sometimes it gets confusing. But I was thinking about this gospel reading, and I was really thinking that the point isn't where we're at now. That's not our final ground. The point of the gospel reading today is that God is the seed, and we are the ones who embrace the seed. And ultimately, we become the seed as well. We become that which bears fruit. So I was thinking about it, and I'm like, well, you know, you could be choked by the cares of the world. You could be feeling like you're growing. You could feel like nothing is really sticking to me. I don't really understand anything that's going on. I don't feel at home in church. I don't feel like I have anything going on for me. But the point of the gospel reading today is it all can change for you. It can become something different because you have the ability to grow. You are all seeds. And a seed doesn't lose its ability to grow. It's still a seed. It still has the ability to find the right place for itself. And you know, sometimes I think in church when we think about ourselves and we think about, do I fit in? Do I not fit in? What does life really mean to me in church? I think we're just looking for that right texture, that right atmosphere for us to begin to feel at home, to grow. If you talk to some people in a community, they say, well, this is my home, this is my roots, this is where I came from, and I feel so at home when I come to church. And then you talk to other people and they're like, I feel like a stranger, I feel like everybody's looking at me funny, I feel like I don't understand everything that's going on. Well, the seed is still coming to us through the church. It's just a matter of understanding how we can fit in to the church. I think sometimes we look for that same model to apply to everyone. And it just doesn't. The same car is not sold to every single human being on the planet. The same home is not made for everybody. We all have different tastes. We all have different styles. We all have different appeals that make us feel like, yeah, that's my home, or yeah, that's the car I want to drive, or yeah, that's the clothes I want to dress up in. It's all different. But in the church, I think sometimes we have a difficulty finding out exactly how we interface, how we start to grow within the church. God gives us all different talents and abilities, and as we come into November, we work our way into Stewardship Sunday, and we start to talk about, obviously, the financials of the church, but more importantly, we talk about how you can interface with the church. How do you become part of what this is? And I think part of that stems from, you have to look at really how you grow best. Are you someone who needs a lot of attention, no attention, a middle ground? What is it that you need? And I think until we accurately assess who we are and think about our personalities, it's very difficult to understand how the church plays a role in our life. No matter what church you go to, whether it's this church, whether it's another church, it's very difficult to understand how God is going to make you grow within the church unless you understand and have taken some time to look at yourself and say, who am I? What do I really, really want? Do I want to be left alone? Do I want to figure everything out on my own? Am I looking to God for every answer in my life, or am I looking to God for nothing in my life? And until we are honest with ourselves and say, really, who am I? And what does God mean to me? And how does God appeal to me? Then we can't really find our home. And the problem with the world today is that we never have time to assess who we really are, because we're always running. You're running. I guarantee that pretty much everybody who's here today was flying down Fifth Avenue, trying to make it on time, or whatever the case was. Your kids are still dressing in the back seat, or you're jamming a piece of toast down somebody's mouth to get them to church on time. I know it's difficult. I have 3 kids. I understand what the problems are. But the point is, do we, in the midst of that running around, running here, there, do we stop at all in our day or at all in our life and really say, who am I? What is important to me? And what is important in my path to God? I know that our church has many Orthodox here today, and there's several non-Orthodox here today too. This message is not an Orthodox message per se. It's a universal Christian message to everyone. That in order for us to really find our roots, whether it's in the Orthodox church, whether it's in another church, whatever the case is, we have to really evaluate and look at ourselves and think, who are we? And I know I've said that a few times already, but do you really know who you are? And I think that's the key. Sometimes when we come into finding tragedy, or we come into situations that really test us, whether it's a health event, whether it's the loss of a loved one, whether it's a job change or an area of country change, whatever it is, then all of a sudden we're put to the test to see what are we really made of. And unfortunately, being a priest, a lot of times that's when people come to me, is like I say all the time, when you're staring at fluorescent lights and every wall around you is white, and there's Dr. So-and-so coming in, and there's Nurse So-and-so coming in, and then all of a sudden, it's, what am I doing? What have I done? Where am I? How did I get here? What is important to me is completely reevaluated. But isn't it a gift that you can give yourself to think about your life prior to those events? To think about what is important to you now. To think about where you want to be in the future. Not just with your job or whatever's going on in the secular world, but where you want to be in your heart, with your family, with your loved ones, with your children. Where do you want to end up with them? And to have a good picture of your future. Many times I think we don't really think about our future. We say, well, we're just trying to get through today. And I talk to people and they say, well, I'm just trying to make it to the end of the day, and we'll try it again tomorrow and see what happens. But if we just look right in front of us, it's very difficult to see that some of the change that needs to be made within us, not to our surroundings, not to the things that we might see as completely impossible to the world around us, but some of those changes need to be made within us so that we look at ourselves and say, on the road that I'm on, is that the right road to help me to grow, to be a better person, to be a better husband, to be a better wife, to be a better child, to be a better parent? Is what I'm doing the real, authentic ground for things to grow in my life? The gospel reading, after reading this, it's 14 years now and hearing it growing up, and you've heard it, this gospel reading about the seeds for your whole life probably. This particular week was the first Sunday that I read it, and what had stuck out in my head was, despite where you're at, despite whatever ground you are in, you are still a seed that has the potential to grow. And the only way you can do that is to assess where your feet are and what kind of ground they're in. And you know what? It's as easy as uprooting yourself and planting yourself in something that works better for you. It's very interesting, like most of you know, that's probably why we have synthetic flowers in church. The poinsettias are no longer real in church. The Easter lilies are no longer real in church, because yours truly will kill it by just looking at it. And I've made the mistake of trying a garden, of planting flowers, and there's something, I don't know, it's kind of ironic that I'm talking about seeds and I'm the worst gardener that I know of. And but what I do remember is many of the plants that I have killed by my own hand. I remember reading the little tags on there, like they're the Bible on what the plant really needs. This plant cannot be in the sun for the whole time, and this one has to be all sun all day long. And you're kind of like, well, is that all sun all day long? What do they mean by full sun? Does that mean, if the house blocks it, does that still full sun? And you go through all these things, but it just proves the point that we're all different. We will all grow in different areas. Partial sun, full sun, cold, no cold. We might be perennials or annuals or whatever the case is. I don't even know what all those words are, but I know they're all different. And you can't treat them all the same. But God helps us in our differences to grow. And the most important thing is that even though we're all different, we all look different, we all act different, we all live in different homes, wear different clothes, etc., etc. Even though we're all different, we are called to understand who we are, to respect the person who is different from us, who may be sitting next to us or behind us or in front of us, and to understand that God has the potential to make us all grow. But the first part starts with understanding where your ground is and seeing if that really works for you. And if it does, great. If it doesn't, find what works for you. But the only thing that will truly, authentically work for you is understanding that God is the growth. He is the one that makes us grow. He is the one that makes us flourish. He is the one that offers us everything. And we need to embrace that and embrace our differences, embrace the change that we can make within ourselves. And at the end, ultimately, we will embrace God. Amen.